going quickly on through this rapid fire round of Apereo software communities to hear from Mike Douglas on Bedework calendaring solution. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. Yes, so a quick run through of Bedework. I'm Mike Douglas. Bedework.com, we provide support for Bedework, and I'm the lead developer as well. So we'll give you a quick overview of where we are, of the features of Bedework, and then some of the recent activities that we've had with the project, and a quick word on what we hope to do in the near and distant future. So, overview. Bedework's a standards compliant, open source, comprehensive calendaring and event systems. What we always say, we've been standards compliant from the start, and the main point of that is we want to be interoperable with clients and with the data. To help with that, we've been a member of CalConnect in one form or another, not CalConnect, but OSA form, for I think ever since CalConnect started. We joined as RPI, we've joined as Spherical Cow, and I'll probably be joining as an independent member soon. We've probably picked up the pace with releases in the last few couple of years, but this is a quick overview of how long we've been going. It's quite a while now. We're used to over 50 organizations, we believe. We haven't really counted them. It's hard to, because a lot of people use it and don't tell us. We'd like you to tell us. But onto the features. Bedework is primarily, we concentrate on public events calendaring, though we do provide all of calendaring and scheduling features. We'll deal with all of those as we go along. Here's a quick list of all the things. You see public calendaring tends to predominate, but we do have a full set of features for personal calendaring. I know some people use that. We've got a CalDAV server. In fact, the entire system is built around a CalDAV compliant backend. CalDAV is also provided. That provides you with address books, certain things, and we use that in both public events for, say, room directories, and we also use it in personal calendaring, obviously. We have a time zone server. There's a TZ-dist service, which we support, and various web APIs. Our approach is people should not be trying to grope around in the data. They should be using the provided services, web servers. We don't have much of an API for programming wise. I've always concentrated on the web services, but that could change over time. We have RESTful services. We've got SOAP, and I'm currently developing a new JSON-based representation and protocol. I'll mention that later. The overall view we have of the data and the system is that it's a big event pool. This is largely the public side, and it's almost one big pool of data. It's got some slight variations on that, and it gets put in there by public events administrators, or a lot of people use the public event submission tool, which sort of has a staging area and allows administrators to find stuff. We use that for, so say students or whatever can put stuff in, and then it can be sort of tidied up by the administrators and then published. We also have a sync engine which can be used to plug into external sources of data. And they may not be external to the organization, but external to Bedework. So Drupal for one. We often do that. OrgSync is another where we've been pulling data in. Having got it in there, as it goes in, it gets categorized in various ways, and it's at least identified as coming from a particular group or set of groups. And to get it out again, it's done through filters and subscriptions. Everything does it that way. So we have a essentially virtual collections, which are an alias to the main calendar or calendars, and they have a filter, and that's how you restrict the data to a particular view. So the main web presence is usually there. One that's got a subscription or subscriptions, and data feeds often tend to be more restricted, but to be a feed for just say given site, department, or whatever. So you can get say the current 10 events or whatever for this week. We have the concept of calendar suites. When we first started with calendar suites, the idea was to they would be for large organizations in the university, like a school would have its own calendar suite. And there is at least one calendar suite, the main calendar suite, and that's represented here. These are the views, in some cases a couple of years old now, of some of the different sites that we've got running beadwork, and that's the main calendar suite view. In fact, at least at Yale, they started using calendar suites for small departmental things, and there were some benefits to that. So we're looking at a more lightweight approach to calendar suites. It allows you to have a whole bunch of administrative groups and so on. So there are some benefits to that. And our client is fully responsive, so you get quite a nice view on the phone and an iPad. And that's all been a lot of work that Arne's done for us. And there's 3 different calendars. We have a few more recent ones, but they all look like that. And Arne's done a lot of work recently on accessibility. I think we've gone beyond what's said here. I haven't managed to confirm with him, but recently we spent a bit of time working on the admin client as well. It was important that the admin client be accessible. I'm not sure that we've actually got that back into the main quick start, but that will happen it's either happened or will happen in the very near future. Okay, and we have, as I mentioned, we have complex filtering available, and this is how you generally produce a feed. I think I don't know whether it's visible on here, but somewhere in the top right of the display, there's a little button which says subscribe or export, and that will bring up the UI for building a feed, and it's basically what you do is you navigate to the view you want, then hit the button, and then it asks you some questions about exactly how you want the feed. Do you want it as just a feed URL, or do you want it as a widget? What format do you want the data in? Is it going to be limited by the number of events or by time or something like that? So you can say, give me all the events for this week or something of that kind. And then as you can see, there's a lot of options for the widget. And what you get is either a URL or a JavaScript widget you can embed on your site. And that's probably the most popular way of getting stuff out of beadwork is to embed it on a departmental site or something of that kind. Quick view of the client. It's got mostly what you expect. We've got an ever-growing set of tabs at the top there. There's the approval queue, which I mentioned before. It's just, well, that's actually a workflow thing. It's used for a couple of purposes. The pending queue is where things end up from the submission client. So an administrator would check that every so often. This is for a super user view, so there's a few extra tabs. There's the calendar suite, the users and system tabs are super user tabs. They allow you to manipulate various aspects of beadwork. This is a quick view of the event creation or update view. It's got sort of what you'd expect. We enforce a description. because people tend to be a little too terse. We enforce a location, we enforce contact, which is not a standard approach, but it's a good public events approach. We don't have people categorized directly. We have these things we call topical areas, which is what we call them from the start. They're really like virtual collections. We should probably rename them as such. They are the filtered view of the events, and you really flag where you want it to show up. And they are actually implemented as aliases, and when stuff gets put in, it gets categories added to it, and then there's a filter also associated with each of those, which is used for the clients to subscribe and filter. We have full recurrence support, and this is the slightly simpler view that you get when you're just doing a regular, I'd say daily or weekly recurrence. But if you select some of the more complex ones, you end up with things of this kind, like the first Monday of the month and the third, whatever it is, Thursday we got here. So you can get very complicated with recurrences. And locations. We recently updated locations to allow more complex data. So you can put a full address in, you can put URLs in, and that kind. Suggested events is another feature we have. One administrative group can suggest an event to another administrative group. The administrators of that group can then either accept or reject the suggestion. If they accept it, the event will get categorized so it appears it's one of theirs as well. So that when things are being filtered by, say, that department, the event will show up. You can go back later on and reject it if you don't want it. And as you can see from the thing, you can look at all the things you rejected in the past and redo it. So rejecting doesn't mean it goes away forever. You can always go back to it. This is good for things that cross disciplines. Like we had at RPI, we had MPAC, where they do things like performances that involved mathematics or whatever. So maybe the math department wants to have have the thing showing up as well, even though it's an arts event. And this, we do have simple workflow. It is relatively simple. Basically divides your administrators into submitters and approvers. They use the admin client, but when they create an event, it does not go into the published event calendar. It needs to be approved by an approver, which is, so this is what they would see when they got the approval queue. They pick an event, they check it over, and then they approve it, and it gets published. We also have a written event registration system, allows you to register for events, and it is possible to have it send notifications through email. It's not one of the easiest of things to set up because there's so many moving parts, but it has been used. I mentioned the sync engine, good way to get stuff in from things like Drupal or whatever. You feed the stuff in via it. It will pull stuff in iCalendar format, is how it was our first format. We've got an OrgSync plugin, and it has a plugin system for non-standard formats. So you could build a Java library and effectively register it with a sync engine, and it'll convert the data and pull it into the system. So very quickly over personal calendaring, because some people do use this. It's pretty standard. I won't say too much. We support CalDAV. We also support a SOAP, CalWS protocol, which I was part of, which is used for the smart grid, but it is a SOAP-based. It's a full calendaring protocol and format. This is the web client. It's fairly old. It could certainly do the refresh, but it's certainly had less attention than other parts of the system, but it does work, and it provides access to all the features of the system, including sharing and VPOLL, which I'll mention very briefly, but it is available via CalDAV. Bedework does implement calendar sharing and notifications. It was the second system to do so. The first was Apple, and we implemented their stuff. We've got VPOLL, which is like Doodle, only not Doodle. And these are some various users. I'll move along fairly quickly through this because we're running low on time. And as I say, calendar sharing is available. What are the recent activities? Well, this is most of these slides were on produced, but we've changed this. Java 11 is now required. It was Java 8. That's the biggest change in the environment, and probably more extensive use of Elasticsearch. But I'm working on a scripted install to try and get away from having to download the entire quick start. There's a scripted install which downloads everything and builds. And very recently, as a result of the experience of trying to do that, I'm trying to build a no-build system which will pull stuff out of Maven Central. That actually works, but needs a little bit of tidying up. You download the script, you run it, it sucks down, it builds an entire quick start, including Wildfly. So you don't have to install anything except Elasticsearch, which really is very hard to install with a script. I'm working on JS Calendar supports a new JSON data format. And we can talk about that later on if people want to. There have been a lot of performance improvements. It's got much faster. It's much more reliable than it used to be. A lot of our problems were working with the database. Now, read-only methods don't even touch a database. So the front-end client is all Elasticsearch. We've got an authenticated public context for those who want to use it. And further development I'm hoping to do is schema changes, completely redo the schema. It's been the same for years, apart from minor changes. That's going to be a pretty hefty change. I'm working a new dump restore. I want to detach the web client from the back end and use protocols. And I'm always open to adding other desirable features if somebody wants to fund the work. Just a quick mention, we do provide commercial support with, I run a hosted service, but largely I'll set it up for people and get them going and leave them with a GitHub repository so they can easily update the system themselves. Doesn't take that long, but it's a lot quicker than trying to figure it all out yourself usually. And that's it. And thank you for taking a look at Bedework.
Thank you, Mike. And I know you've had a busy week because you've got Cal Connect conference this week also. Yes. We've got a minute or two. Just a quick question from Laura Giekler. If there's time, what's the stickiest use case Bedework has ever been asked to support? In other words, what did the institution or administrator want to do and for what audience?
We found that the Bedework, the public side of Bedework has been pretty much what everybody, there's very little work done on the public side. Most of the things that universities ask for are features on getting stuff into it. Administrative changes and obviously they like to have it customized. I should have highlighted the fact it's all got an XSL base, so it's very customizable for look. We try and discourage universities from completely rejiggering the front view because, in fact, the view we've sort of fastened on has been used by a number of places. So it's largely back-end work that they want. Integration with other sources of events. But we're open to anything. I mean, if people come with ideas that we've not thought of, it certainly it would be happy to try and accommodate.
Excuse me. Thanks very much, Mike. We're almost out of time, almost exactly on 10 past the hour. Thanks for attending, and the recording will be available after the event.
Well, thank you very much for running this.